Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in for this special live stream. I appreciate you all being here. And for the first time ever on this channel, we have a special guest. His name is Billie Johnson, and I am very happy that Mr. Johnson is able to join us today. Mr. Johnson, thank you so much.
It's an honor to be on your live stream.
All right, thank you. So I will do a quick introduction and share my opening remarks, and then we will jump straight into the discussion. And I see people are already joining, so wonderful. We've got some thumbs up on this video already, and so hopefully more will join as we proceed. So Mr. Billie Johnson is the chairman of Republican Party's 2nd Congressional District in Wisconsin. And here in our state, we have a total of 8 congressional districts. And the 2nd Congressional District is in the south central part of Wisconsin. The Congressional District has both rural and urban areas. And most notably, the city of Madison, which is the capital of Wisconsin, is located in the 2nd Congressional District. Now, I have known Mr. Johnson for many years. He's a great conservative, and we both have been very active in the Republican Party for years now, and we continue to be. We continue to be. We have to be energized, and we continue to be very involved. And we have done many things together as Republicans in Wisconsin, and Mr. Johnson is a great friend, and I'm very happy that he's the first ever guest on my YouTube live stream.
Thank you, Joseph.
So, Mr. Johnson, thank you for being here. I appreciate it very much. And as my viewers, those who have been watching this channel for months now, they already know this. I have been doing live streams since January. And I'm very happy to say that viewers from many different states across the country tune in for these live streams. You know, I'm just going to name a few states: California, New York, Illinois, New Mexico, Texas, South Dakota, Ohio, Florida, of course, Wisconsin, and others. They have tuned in for my live stream, and it's just encouraging to see how this community continues to grow. I call my viewers and this channel a community, and we're just trying to exercise our First Amendment right and spread the message of freedom. So I think many viewers out there who watch my channel understand the importance of Wisconsin in national politics. So if you are a conservative in Texas, for example, or if you are a voter in Florida, of course, you are going to care about how Texas is voting, how Florida is voting, but you will also care about how Wisconsin is voting, because if you want to see a Republican get elected to the White House, then our battleground state of Wisconsin matters a lot in the path to victory for Republicans in the presidential race. So I think my viewers understand how important Wisconsin is as we head towards November 2024, the presidential election. And not only that, Wisconsin is also important as Republicans are working hard to regain the majority in the U.S. Senate. And that's why all eyes are on Wisconsin. And in particular, all eyes are on Wisconsin's 2nd Congressional District, obviously with some emphasis on Dane County, which we'll talk about soon. So, Mr. Johnson, I have some questions that I'll ask you.
Okay.
And we'll talk about your involvement in politics, and we'll talk about the 2nd Congressional District. We'll talk about Dane County and the surrounding areas. And of course, we will discuss the projections when it comes to the 2nd Congressional District as we are heading towards November. And also what kind of initiatives, activities, and efforts are there to energize voters as we approach the election. So are you ready, Mr. Johnson?
I'm ready. So.
All right, perfect. So we're going to go straight into the discussion. And let me also just note that as we are discussing, I will be monitoring the live chat window. I see Terry Dunlap from South Dakota is here, and then Pamela Hernandez, and I see someone named Jeff. So, you know, we will have some first-time viewers. We will have some repeat viewers. And so if they have any question, I'll just monitor the live chat window. If they have any questions, I'll bring that up and I'll ask you. Otherwise, I do have some questions I want to ask you, and we're going to go right into the discussion here. So, Mr. Johnson, once again, thank you for being here. We're going to start with, just tell us about yourself and your involvement in the Republican Party. So we'll just start with.
Sure. I'm married, got 2 adult children. They both live in other states, but they're doing very well. I went to UW-Madison, got a bachelor's degree in political science, economics, and then a master's degree from the Center for Public Policy Administration, which later on became the Fallon Institute. So I was a good, solid Democrat back then. My parents were FDR Democrats. I kind of radicalized myself. I can't blame any professors back then. And all I want to do is work for the state. So I get a job working for the state. In fact, I got a job offer like a couple of days before my last final, and I just partied and barely passed the final. I was quite young then. And I started working for the state. And it's like, I was in human resources, or back then they call it personnel. And it's like, all these employees are making more money than my parents could ever dreamed of. Both my parents just went to 8th grade. They had to get out and work in the Depression. And they just like, all they would do was complain about how badly they're being treated and they're being paid salaries, all these salaries and fringe benefits. It's like, yipes, So I was still a pretty liberal Democrat, but by 6 months, I hated the state employees union. So it didn't take long. And then Franklin Roosevelt was the one who said government employees should never be unionized. So it fit well, and I could still be a liberal Democrat. But then I just kept seeing things happen, and solidarity in Poland. And all of a sudden, the stuff that I thought was right-wing propaganda turned out to be mild compared to what was really happening. And but then the media was all solidly anti-Ronald Reagan, and he was going to cause a nuclear war. And I did reluctantly vote for Jimmy Carter in 1980, but by 1984, I was a volunteer in Ronald Reagan's campaign, re-election campaign. But being a state employee, I still stayed away from politics because it's all Democrats here. It's a group think. And so I would get involved in presidential campaigns because that was okay. Write letters to the editor, stuff like that. But all of a sudden, I kept telling managers would say, "You're very promotable. You'll be a section chief." And I always got passed over. And I started thinking, I wonder if my letters to the editor are doing it, because I used to write about foreign policy and pro-life issues. And so I stopped writing letters to the editor, and I'm darned if I didn't get a promotion in a few years. So, so there's some real, and it's worse now than back then. I mean, in 1984, I was in the Human Resources Department, UW-Madison. I had a Ronald Reagan bumper sticker on my car, and nobody cared. Now, if you had a Trump bumper sticker in your car, there it would be burned. It would be burned within an hour. So, it's gotten worse by the year here as intolerance has grown. But I finally retired and decided to get active. Actually, about 2019, before I retired, I started getting active. I had a little health scare. It might have been more hypochondria than anything else, but I thought I was dying in October of 2019. I thought, why am I not getting out and getting involved in politics like I should? So I started getting involved, and then Scott Walker's campaign, and then Act 10 came around and all the riots, and then I went underground, started blogging. I was doing pro Walker blogs under assumed names and stuff like that. And I actually had a fake Facebook account, which had more friends than I had my real account. So it's kind of humbling. And so I did that till I got close to retirement. And then I started to get involved more, volunteering campaigns. And a friend of mine, Ashton Kirsch, and I tried to start something basically called what's called WinRed. That was something we tried in 2015 to get started, but we needed donors. You needed a couple $1 million just to get that off the ground. We never got it. So, but that got me more involved in politics. I helped manage a candidate for superintendent of public instruction in 2016 and 17. And then I got active in the Republican Party. Been on the executive committee for the Republican Party of Dane County for a number of years. As a social media coordinator, we about tripled the number of our social media followers. And then I ran for vice chair, and so really as vice chair, you can't do much. So
and that's the vice chair of the Republican Party of Dane County.
Of Dane County, yeah.
Okay.
And it's I did a lot basically. The chair wasn't always happy with everything I did, but I did a lot of stuff. But I saw the second congressional district. It's like not much was happening here. The party was not raising money. They weren't doing anything. They didn't have a website, didn't have a social media page. I kept bugging them to do that, but I didn't want to coordinate it. So finally, I decided to run for a district chair and took off from there. And we ran on platform of change. We ran as a group. We ran as a ticket. Four of us ran. The vice chair, the treasurer, the secretary, we all on a reform ticket. And we said, vote for all of us or vote for none of us. And it worked because we all won by landslide margins, 2-1. And our platform was one of change. Start raising money, start doing things. The old chair was a nice guy, just not very active. We now have a Facebook page, we have a Twitter page. I got to get more active on Truth Social, on Truth Social and other stuff, but I'm trying to find people to help with that. And Republicans are so scared of social media, I can't get volunteers. It's another issue we have is the age issue. But so we've done fundraising here we've raised about $60,000 so far as an in-kind contribution and direct donations. And I told a friend in Waukesha County that, but he says, that all? But that's, they're like the promised land of Republicans here. It's tough sledding in Dane County in the second district. Businesses are scared to donate because they're boycotted. Even individuals don't want to donate because Democrats are always checking campaign finance reports. So I've tried fundraising outside of this district, and that's worked pretty well, and including outside of the state. Sent letters out pretty much to major donors. Anyone out of state who's donated $5,000 or more to a Republican candidate in Wisconsin in the last couple elections got a letter from me, and it's worked out pretty well. In fact, a lot of our donations have come from outside this district. I haven't tried to get small donors yet. I don't want to take money away from other Republicans, but I would like to build up a small donor base too.
Yeah, actually, that's a nice transition to the next question that I have, and I think you already introduced the second congressional district in some of the things you said. But tell us more. I mean, I live in the second congressional district, and I know this district well. But for the viewers who are watching, and there are viewers from out of state, tell us about the second congressional district and why it matters in a statewide race.
Certainly. The big county in this district is Dane County with about over 500,000 people in it. And then there's 5 other counties, Sauk, Iowa, Lafayette, Greene, and the western part of Rock. So you get outside of Dane County, it's small towns and rural areas. And the same areas that are elsewhere in the state are always voting Republican, and they're not here. But Dane County is tough to city of Madison. I mean, in the downtown wards, it looks like the old Soviet elections. 950 votes to 12 or something. I mean, there's just some crazy numbers down there, and that's the students getting indoctrinated and leaving. And they've been doing that for 20 years. And then 72% of the population does live in Dane County, but they provide 79% of the Democratic votes. But the rural areas, it's a little different when you get outside of Madison, and the Democrats are getting so bad at things, it's so radical that it's starting to turn. 87 districts in this, 87 wards in the second district. If you're out of state, you got over 50% of the vote. 5 of those were actually a lot compared to other elections, and then the other counties. But you get Madison, the number of people in the and they're just busy down here. So I don't know if they, but that really ballooned the deficit of Republican votes up give you a background. Donald Trump in the district by 146,000 votes. He got 151,000 votes deficit. Say, oh, our candidate got 5,000 more votes in our county. What really counts is add up all the votes. Or you got a surplus, more Republicans than Democrats, or a deficit, more Democrat votes than Republicans. And in a statewide election, that all adds up here. And there's nothing to cheer about because they did a trend line a few years ago, and it showed us topping by 2008. By 2028, we would have about 200,000 vote deficit here just in Dane County. And but I added in the 2020 numbers because Donald Trump lost this district by 187,000 votes. I think the Democrats' turnout machine was incredible. So everybody on campus votes, everybody votes, maybe the dead people vote, but they're all out there voting. And the deficit went up from 146,000 to 187,000 votes. And right now, a trend line projects out about if nothing changes, that deficit out at this district could be 215,000 votes. You can't make that up statewide. You can get a lot of votes. You can get 70% of the votes in Langley County, Lincoln County, Florence County up in northern Wisconsin. It's not a lot of votes. Milwaukee's been trending better for Republicans, but Dane County is making up for it and getting worse. It'll turn into the Chicago of Wisconsin, where you can't win in Illinois because of all the stuff that's can turn it around. We don't have to win here. We're not going to win. We just have to lose by less. Now, that's not a great campaign slogan, let's lose by less. That's not really a rallying cry, but that's what it is. Let's cut this down. And outside of this, in the other counties, Ron Johnson got 48% of the vote. That's pretty good. I think we can turn that around by working in the rural areas. And probably I'd like to see a 45 vote win by Donald Trump outside of Dane County. Meanwhile, Dane County's got a great news. Also, part of this was a new leadership team in Dane County, and they've been raising money, and they're doing the same thing here. They're going to work to rural areas, like layers on an onion and work in. And if we could cut that deficit down by 30,000 votes, Donald Trump only lost the state with all the iffy things happening in the voting, voting in the park and indefinitely confined voters that blew up to 200,000 because the law was weak enough that there was no control on that. And Donald Trump still only lost by 20,000. So we turn this around by 30,000 here, you've got it.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Democrats are going to pull all the stuff this time as they did last time. There's too many eyes on it now.
Okay.
Last time in COVID. Sorry, I may be talking too much, but
oh no, you're fine.
That's where I'm coming from is these numbers.
Yeah, no, I'm just monitoring the chat window too, and I know there are two questions that I saw. One that we'll get to, one that I'll ask you. So Pamela Hernandez from the chat window here is asking, how long can you stay as chair? So would you just explain your position a little bit as the chairman of the second congressional district? What's your term?
It's a 2-year term, but there's no term limits. The previous incumbent was here for 23 years. So I'm too old to be here for 23 years. I may be a one-term thing, but my goal is to help Donald Trump win this state, and that's why I ran. So I do that. I can go off into the sunset, but I like politics. It's my hobby. I don't hunt. I don't fish. I don't want to. My idea of hunting and fishing is going to the meat counter at a grocery store. So it's my hobby and I enjoy doing it. People keep thanking me for all the stuff I do. It's like, if it wasn't fun, I wouldn't do it. I just like doing this. My wife's very tolerant of it and I'm retired. And so that's what I do.
Okay. So I do see some comments. Some of the viewers said that there was a little bit of lag with regard to the internet. So I guess there was a bit of a delay with the internet transmission, the video, but that's just tech stuff. I can't address it, but it's okay on my end. So we'll just continue. And also, Terry from South Dakota, our friend Terry, who used to be in Wisconsin, now she is in South Dakota. She has a question.
I think I know her. Terry moved to Wyoming and now in South Dakota.
South Dakota. So Terry Dunlap from Greene County.
Okay.
Yeah, she's here. So Terry is asking, how has the new map boundaries affected the second district? So for those who don't know this yet, for those who are from out of state, there were some, uh, you know, um, uh, changes to the state boundaries for state assembly, state senate. So are you okay with going? This was not in my list of questions, but do you want to discuss that a little bit?
Yeah, I know
How
all
the-
about that. Yeah, the Democrats took control of the Wisconsin Supreme Court last year, and they ran on a platform of they kept complaining the Democrats gerrymandered this district, the state, but then what they did is Tony Evers' maps, the governor, was actually totally, we call it Tony mandering. They had put incumbents together, Republican incumbents together in districts, moved them out of their districts. But very few, it's blatantly, because maybe like 2 Democrats had to run against each other versus 15 Republicans. Well, the legislature rejected that, and we still control the Supreme Court in 2022. All the way went up to the U.S. Supreme Court. If you look it up, and now it's Johnson versus Weck, and that was me because of alphabetical name among the plaintiffs. And everything was fine till the Democrats took control of the court. They reopened the case and they appointed 2 liberal out-of-state people to come up with, quote, fair maps, which you knew would be bad. So our Republican legislature quickly rushed through to approve the governor's maps because as bad as they were, they figured the new maps would be even worse. It's the devil you know versus the one you don't. And Tony Evers, to everyone's surprise, our governor signed them, but they're bad maps. They have carved up Dane County. The Republicans will be very fortunate if they can hang on to the legislature. Right now, they got almost a two-thirds majority in the U.S. Senate and in the state Senate, and an overwhelming majority in the Assembly. So hopefully, next year the Supreme Court can change over again, and the old maps can come back. But they left the congressional districts alone. So our only change from 2020 to now is that the city of Beloit was moved out of the district, which actually made this district slightly less Democratic, but not by much.
Yeah. And yeah, you mentioned the Supreme Court. There is a very important Supreme Court race coming up next year. So as we are looking at November 2024, obviously, there's a lot at stake in November 2024. But right after that, there is also a race for the Supreme Court that's coming up in Wisconsin in spring of 2025. So, that's something that us here in Wisconsin will be paying attention to. It's on our radar.
It's hard to get Republicans to pay attention to spring elections. It's finally starting, but we have yet to have a Republican Party-backed candidate for the Department of Public Instruction. So what I always keep hearing is Republicans are tired and burned out after the election in November, but I never see the Democrats tired and burned out. They're going constantly. I mean, government is their god, so they want to serve it. Our people, well, we won, I'll just go back, okay, we got a guy in office, just take the next 2 years off, we're okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't work that way. It just does not work that way, but unfortunately, but hopefully our people will wake up to that.
Yeah. So that actually is a transition, that's proper transition to the next question that I'm going to ask you. So I was going to ask you what kind of challenges Republicans are facing in the second congressional district, but I think we've already talked about it, but you can obviously add more if you want. But then the next part of my question is, what efforts are you leading as the chair of the second congressional district? You've got your team. What efforts are you leading to overcome the challenges that Republicans are facing in the second congressional district? So,
yeah, we've got a good team here. What we're trying to do is, and we'll do this fall to motivate people. It's hard, they're kind of beaten down by this, but Joe Biden is a good motivator. And We no longer they used to talk about we got to win this district. We're not going to win this district, not this decade. We don't need to win it. So they say my vote doesn't count because I get overwhelmed in Madison. Every vote out there in the rural county, every vote takes up, even takes away a Madison vote. And we're going to work on that angle. And also, because what we're finding out is hunters don't vote. A lot of church members don't vote. A lot of Republicans just kind of either don't vote or only vote like once in a while. And we know who they are because we've bought some good data. So we have to use get the resources to contact them. This fall, I mean, the television airwaves are going to be full of, I'm just dreading it, campaign commercials, and probably postcards are going to be a half a foot deep in your mailbox. We're hoping with digital advertising. I'd also like to talk what I call a precinct strategy, except it's not a precinct in rural areas. It may be a township, because people talk too. Republicans are obsessed with knocking on doors, and that is the best thing you can do. From studies have shown to get more votes. But what if there's no door to knock on, and they don't talk about that? Apartment buildings are going up like crazy here in this whole district. Dane County especially, but elsewhere, you can't get in those. They're security locked. You try to sneak in those and start knocking on doors, they're going to call the police, and then you're going to get a ride in the squad car to the police station. So you can't reach them. And in the few apartment buildings that aren't security locked are probably not the ones you want to be in the first place. In rural areas, it gets different. I grew up on a farm, and it's here in the city, it's different. The knock on the door could be Girl Scout cookies, could be a politician, could be someone, tree trimmers come here at least once a month to knock on the door, and I tell them we're okay. You're used to that, but in a rural area, a strange car drives in your driveway. It's a whole different thing. And I grew up in an area where there was no rural crime, and now there's rural crime all over because of the drugs out there and the fentanyl. So all of a sudden, you don't know who's in that car. Are they going to rob you? Are they going to shoot you? And so it's a little difficult to do that. But a neighbor can do that. If we could find somebody who lived in their precinct might be a township, but they know you very possibly. If you call them, it's not a call. It's not from a call center. It's your neighbor calling. Hoping we can find a few hundred people willing to do that. Problem is Republicans don't like to volunteer. So I'm not sure if we can, but we're going to try. Okay. And that could make a difference. We're talking about possibly 40,000 people who we think are conservatives, but who rarely or never vote. It's a tough nut to crack because before COVID shut things down, I was going to gun shows for the Trump campaign as a volunteer. And people would tell you, I don't vote. And they didn't seem, if somebody says I smoke, they kind of, put their head down and they're a little embarrassed. But no, I don't vote, and they're proud about it. I don't know the rationale behind it. Maybe it's because then nothing's your fault. Oh, I voted for the guy and look what he did. I don't know, but we've got to get them out there to vote.
Yeah. It's all about the ground game. It's all about person to person contact, right? I mean, ads are fine. Yeah. Yeah. And we know this, having been involved in politics, and I've known you for so many years. We know this, that ads are great. You need the radio ads, the TV ads, and the internet ads, but it's all about, reaching the voters in person, being out there, shaking hands, looking people in the eye, and, really making the case. And I think Republicans, I mean, what do we want? We want people to have and to enjoy their freedom. We want lower taxes, limited government, more freedom. And so, how do we get the message out? On the other hand, the Democrats are just offering free stuff. That seems to be the bulk of their campaign. Free this, free that, and So I'm gonna highlight a few things, and then I'll ask you a question.
Okay.
We're going to look in the past a little bit. And by the way, I just want to give a shout out to a few of my viewers here. Susan Parker is here, Arletta Jordan, and I mentioned Pamela Hernandez already. Sheriff of YouTube is here, and JW from Ohio. So wonderful to see all these viewers. So thank you for being here. And let's jump into the next question here. Now, as we look at the past, And we're not going to go too far. We're going to go as far back as 2018. Okay. We've had some major statewide losses in Wisconsin. Um, Up until the November 2018 election, we had a Republican governor in Wisconsin. We had a Republican lieutenant governor. The attorney general was a Republican. And so the Republicans lost the 2018 governor's race and the attorney general's race. We also lost the 2018 US Senate race. And then in 2022, 4 years later, once again, we lost the governor's race and we lost the attorney general's race. And then the Republican backed candidate also lost the race for the US Supreme Court in 2020 and in 2023. And of course, we've had some victories. In 2022, we won the US Senate race and the race for the state treasurer. But we've had some major losses, 2018, 2020, 2022, 2023. And so, given all these losses, and I think you may have already answered this a little bit, but I'm going to ask you again. Given all these major losses, how do you motivate Republicans to get out and vote? Not just Republicans, registered Republicans, but really freedom-loving Americans whose views would align with the Republicans. How do you motivate them to get out and vote? And what do you say to the voter who's not feeling optimistic? Like you said, somebody who tells you, I didn't vote, or I don't vote. How do you motivate those people?
Part of it, I think, two things. Going back to 2000, this is my personal opinion, but
Mhm.
2018, I didn't see any enthusiasm in the Republican Party. It was sort of like going along. They haven't changed things. They didn't change things a lot. Their messaging wasn't good. They don't network with other groups. It's like Democrats network with anybody and everybody, and therefore we'd like to keep standoff things. Oh, we can't work with the patriot groups. We can't do this, and then people just say, "Fine, I'll stay home." And they don't see a lot of stuff. We talk a lot about cutting taxes, but we're not cutting them. If you just cut the increase, we tend to have okay. The Democrats propose a 10% tax increase, and we say no. We'll just do 2%. They never see cuts. I mean, because of inflation, you're moving up a progressive tax system, you're moving up that with inflation. So the net tax has not been cut, and we said we're going to cut the taxes, and we did a lot with Act 10 that we say we saved billions of dollars. But the problem is Republicans don't bother voting in the spring elections, so school referendums pass. Even in conservative areas, it's like 80 to 90% pass rate. So the property taxes are going up, and all of a sudden they're talking about we've cut your taxes. Well, I didn't see any cut. Whatever you cut made up for it in my property tax increase. And I think we're in that kind of loop. And the Republican Party now has got new management too on statewide, and I think they're turn that around a bit. There's some new groups here. We've got to get younger in this party. I mean, I go to so many Republican meetings,
Mhm.
and it looks like it's bingo night in the home. I mean, it's just not good. And but I went to a Turning Point conference in Phoenix, and there's thousands of enthusiastic young people there. But here we've got young people in the party. They tend to not want to work with them, and we've got two young chairs in both Dane County and Milwaukee County, and their executive boards are attacking both of them constantly because it's procreate. They don't have how to say this. People don't have a vision how to win an election. So we're not welcoming new people. You want you to sit and wait your turn, be quiet for 20 years and then you can be in charge. And that's not how it works. And we have to change, and we have to network with anybody. As far as this district goes, within the boundaries of federal law, I'm under federal law, not state law with the Congressional District. Sure, I get a little speech impediment, so I kind of stumble once in a while.
That's okay.
But we're going to as long as we can, we're going to network with Turning Point. We're going to network with any of them. I'll be going to a meeting of the Southwest Patriots group this weekend. I don't know much about them. I don't know anybody in there, but I'm going to show up. I did talk to one of the people involved, so he said, "Sure, come on over." But I don't care. We got to get rid of this turf battles that we have. Our goal is to win. The question is not who's going to. We all like to have our little turf. You can't come to my county and you can't do this. And no, I was told by one person I shouldn't fundraise because I should get the permission from the county chair and a district chair if I try to fundraise in some other county. Like if I send a letter out to Waukesha County, I should get the permission for that. Well, I'll do that about when pigs fly. So the Republicans want to keep things narrow. Democrats share everything. They share lists. They share everything. They get a lot of money. Well, Republican Assembly members won't share their donor list with each other. I mean, as far as contact information, the thing is, you look at campaign finance reports and you have all the addresses. It's getting the emails and the phone numbers gets harder. But we have to stop this. We have to.
So your
my
message
phone,
is
my
your
phone's
your me-
popping up with some text messages, and I'm reading that when this is coming through.
okay,
So I'm multitasking. So
sure.
I fully intend, again, cooperating with federal law. I'm just going to cooperate with anybody and everyone who will get more Republican votes in this district.
Okay. So your message really is make room for the younger people, get new energy in the party, and obviously statewide, unity. You want to
Yeah.
focus on unity, and that's really the recipe for success.
As far as the, but you talk about the voter, how do you motivate them? I'm just going to say, how much does it cost to vote? Well, it doesn't cost anything to vote. So, and we'll give you a right to the polls. So why don't you want to vote? And I hope we have the resources to do that on a one-to-one basis, but we have to do that. I just saw this thing at the gun shows. So they don't think the government's having to get their guns. Democrats were talking about gun control for years and it never happens, but until it's too late. But the Democrats have gotten so radical. I saw one as a New York candidate for Congress running against Stefanik. The Democrat was saying, well, we need to have re-education camps set up for the MAGA supporters. So they're not even hiding it anymore. So, but they got to get our guns first. So that's the hard part for them. But I would think again with the inflation going on, I hate to say we're counting on Joe Biden to win this, for us to win, but I mean that's your motivation there. I mean, fast food inflation is crazy. The McDonald's dollar, the McDonald's dollar menu is going to soon be renamed a $10 menu the way it's going. So it's hurting families. You can't afford to go out and eat. Food's going up. The Biden administration just dumped in like millions of gallons. There's a gas reserve, and they've just dumped millions of gallons out there to lower the price. But if there's ever an emergency, there's no gas backup.
And I actually talked about this. I talk about inflation on this channel a lot. My viewers know this. I always discuss inflation because it's an everyday thing. And it's not, I mean, we cannot shield ourselves from inflation.
No.
You go out and you buy a burger, you buy a sandwich, you're buying gas for your vehicle, you're buying groceries. I mean, we run into that every day. So I talk about that quite a bit. And I think not too long ago, I mentioned that OPEC is moving forward with their plans to cut production. So, because we are not energy independent anymore, we were energy independent under Trump, but we are not energy independent anymore. So, whatever OPEC does is going to affect us. It's going to affect our wallets. And so that's why, we need a Republican president. And I'm a Trump supporter. People know that. And that's why I just always keep saying we gotta vote for Trump. And it's November 2024 that we're focusing on for now. So that
I'm glad
actually,
you mentioned. Sorry to interrupt. Glad you mentioned
sure.
about energy self-sufficiency. Yeah, that was always a dream from decades ago. And we should be self-sufficient. I was like, oh, we can't be. Peak oil was the big popular thing, and in 1970s we're going to run out of oil. Under Trump, we have it. First time I never thought I would see self-sufficiency. We started exporting some, and then Biden shut down pipelines, cut down drilling. With their radical environmental agenda, and now we're depending on OPEC. They've used up our oil reserves to get Biden elected in 2020 by keeping the prices down. If there's a crisis, we have no reserves. It's going to be a mess. And
So I have a viewer question here. Pamela Hernandez is asking, sir, what is your take on the border issue? So, Mr. Johnson, do you want to talk about the border
that's an easy
crisis?
one. Build a damn wall. So, and I think we do have to deport some of the folks coming in. There is no, I mean, this is a 10 million people. That's an invasion, and they're overwhelmingly young men. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't. On June 22nd, 1941, 3 million Germans invaded the Soviet Union. I don't recall reading that Stalin welcomed the newcomers. I mean, that was an invasion of 3 million, the German army, the Nazi army. This is 10 million people coming in. And we don't know who they are. And they're all over
Hmm.
this, coming from all over this world. This could turn into a bloodbath here. They're already here. If we don't do something very soon and get Biden out of office, we're not a country. We're a land to be occupied. And that's what's
Okay.
happening.
Yeah.
Cartels are coming up in here. It's not going to be easy to get back out of this problem because they're already here and they have guns. And there's still going to be a lot of just, I'm afraid a
And
lot of people are going to get killed on this before it's all over.
I discuss immigration issues all the time because I'm an immigrant, a legal immigrant, as I always highlight, and a U.S. citizen. And I just say, if you look at fairness, it's not fair to have an open border, because then the legal immigrants, those who are following the paperwork, they're following the process, doing the paperwork and going through the background check, and they're coming in, they have to wait for years, and they're coming in, and they're following the law, and that's the proper process. But then what message is the Biden administration sending to the legal immigrants when they keep the border open, and people from all over the world, they take the shortcut and they just come in, and then they expect government handouts. So I know if we go into the discussion of immigration, that's probably going to be easily an hour, 2 hour,
Yeah.
just talking about immigration. And Mr. Johnson knows how passionately I talk about immigration issues. But the message is we have to secure the southern border. And as Trump said, there has to be some kind of a major deportation effort when Trump is in office. What is that going to look like? We're going to let our new president, hopefully, well, not new because Trump was in office before.
Yes.
We're gonna let Donald Trump, hopefully, when he's elected and in office again as president, we're going to let him and his administration figure out. But we want to see the border secure. We want to see an end to illegal immigration, and we want to see some kind of major deportation effort, because it's going to have to happen. With 10 plus million people here illegally since 2021, it's unacceptable. So I'm going to go into the next question, and this is once again a perfect transition, talking about Donald Trump. How do you motivate in the second congressional district? Because as we discussed, what happens in the second congressional district, this is going to have an impact on the statewide races. And so how do you motivate in the second congressional district? How do you motivate the independent voters to vote for Donald Trump? And what's going to be your message to them, the independent voters?
There's a lot of messaging needs to be done, but I mean, so what do you basically what do you want? Do you want world peace, or do you want you can get no mean tweets, and the mean tweets keep coming up all the time. So I could use a few mean tweets and then have some world peace. Yeah, I could use a few mean tweets and have a border wall. I could use a few mean tweets and have inflation down to where it was controlled when he was in office. I mean,
Mhm.
it's got look how we were in 2020 or 2019 when the economy was humming and before the whole COVID hoax got going again. I probably
Mhm.
don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but um, COVID probably cost Donald Trump the election because the way they changed the voting, the mail-in voters, it's unsecure voting. But the economy was just humming in 2019. Full unemployment, low inflation, all the stuff that they used to say you can't have full employment without inflation. And we had both. We had low inflation and high employment rates, and that all ended. But the media is actually our enemy. They kept, the what we had the first once the whole Russia hoax fell apart, then they
Mhm.
started with the Ukraine, and that whole thing was also ginned up by the media. And we got plenty of rhinos in the Senate too that went along with that. But it's even this, it's amazing he actually could win with all the attacks on him. I mean, it's 24/7 attacks on the news media. And Fox used to be good. No, they started going downhill too. It's like a friend of mine, Milwaukee, said he talked to an immigrant from the Soviet Union,
Mm-hmm.
and he said his friend said the Soviet propagandists were amateurs compared to the American media. So that's something to think about. He saw propaganda, and they're just so sophisticated. And it's worse. They can take a word out of a sentence, and you can't tell them. They did that to Trump, by the way. Take the word "not" out of a sentence, you turn it into a positive. And artificial intelligence, they're worried about that too, to make artificial voices that are indistinguishable from the real voice. This could get ugly. This could be the ultimate time of deception if you want to get want to not sleep tonight. Think about what's possible. I mean, this is a crossroad for us. This is Trump loses. I think the country's done for. How do you come back for that? They're going to keep the borders open, and they've weaponized the Justice Department, FBI. I mean, Federal Bureau of Investigation sounds innocent, right? But what about the Committee for State Security? A committee like that doesn't sound bad, right? The Soviet Union had a Committee for State Security, but its Soviet acronym was KGB, one of the most feared secret police organizations in the world. Sounds harmless. I mean, and so, yeah, it could happen. You say can't happen here. It could easily happen here. We're starting to see this now. There's a 70-some-year-old pro-life mother who is going to prison because she was praying outside of an abortion facility. I mean, why is that a federal crime in a state? And they're going after that. It's crazy what's happening, and before long we'll be scared to speak out.
So I have another question, kind of connected to the question that I asked you. I asked you about, the independent voters and what's your message for them. You've obviously, highlighted some very important issues that people must keep in mind as we approach November 2024, the election day. What do you say? Okay, this is going to be interesting. What do you say to the Republicans? Okay. Who are not willing to vote for Donald Trump because they want to vote for, Nikki Haley or someone else. And by the way, I've on this channel, I gotta say one thing. On this channel, when Nikki Haley was in the race, still running for president, I kept saying that Nikki Haley has a great future in politics, but 2024 is not the year for her. So, I opposed Nikki Haley running for president in 2024. I don't oppose her as a political figure because, obviously I don't agree with her 100%, but she's a Republican and she's got a great future, hopefully, in politics. But I was happy when she dropped out, when she finally made the wise decision to drop out. And I was waiting for her to endorse Trump. She did not do that, but then she came out, I think, not too long ago and said that she's going to vote for Trump. So that was refreshing to see. But having said that, what do you say to the Republicans who are Republicans, but they're not going to vote for Trump for whatever reason because they want to vote for Haley or someone else? What do you say to them? What's your message to those Republicans?
It's a binary choice. Either Biden or Trump will be elected. And do you want Biden? If you want Biden, just go and vote for him then. Staying home is a vote for Biden. That's it. You can't deal with that.
That sums it up. There's no better way to put it other than what you said. It's a binary choice. Who do you want? Do you want Trump or do you want Biden? Do you want the status quo with Biden? Inflation, gas problems, energy bills going up, global unrest and conflict, open border. Do you want all that? Then Biden is the choice. If you want energy independence, if you want border security, if you want a strong economy, if you want to see America as the global leader, and if you want to have peace and prosperity, globally, if you want our position to be strong, then then Trump is the choice. Obviously, we just have to look at 2017, 2018, 2019,
Yeah,
as you said
I mean,
not too
if
long
their
ago.
mind's made up, that's it. They're supporting Biden. And don't hide it anymore. I saw this myself. In October of 2019, my oldest daughter Anna and I went to Israel.
Hmm.
She works for an airline, so we got to travel
Okay.
fairly inexpensively. And it was like the peak period for peace. There was
Hmm.
no one shooting anything. Um, we took a bus ride into Petra in Jordan. We traveled across the border. Everything was good. And look at it now. Look what happened after Biden. I mean, it's a snarling mess, and there's killing and death. I mean,
And
Hamas existed then, but they were kind of contained, and they didn't feel emboldened to. Most of these terrorist groups didn't feel emboldened to start attacking the United States or attacking allies because of Donald Trump. He didn't know
and
what he was going to do.
I also highlight to people, because originally I'm from Asia, as you know, I'm an immigrant from Asia, and I tell people that there's unrest in Asia too. Political unrest. In some places you see political unrest, and in some places you see armed conflict. But the overall picture of the globe is that there's greater level of unrest. People are tensed. People are anxious, and we need strong U.S. leadership to have peace and prosperity beyond our borders, in the
Yeah.
US and beyond our borders. So that's why, once again, that's why you got to vote for Trump. So I'm going to ask you another question here. By the way, great answer when you said binary choice. It's either
Thanks.
Trump or Biden. Do you want the status quo, the crisis? Then it's Biden. If you want peace and prosperity, it's Trump. So let me ask the next question. Please share with us your views about the U.S. Senate race in Wisconsin as Republicans are looking at defeating incumbent Democrat U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin. Just share
I'm
with
not.
us your views about the Senate race.
Uh, I'm actually optimistic about it, and I usually am not in politics. I always expect the worst because you usually get it. And I I liked how Eric Hovde's the main Republican candidate. It's like a minor candidate running in a primary, but it's going to be Hovde.
Mhm.
And he hit the ground running. He's all over the internet. He's doing digital. The other thing Republicans don't do is digital. I keep hearing about this. It's like they're getting assembly races, state senate races. They're all getting beat up because Republicans don't do digital and Democrats just do that constantly. And that's what I'm hoping to do, raise enough money here for that. I mean, it's also something called over the top advertising, which is getting the streaming services because people are cutting the cable now too. The worst thing to do is advocate, uh, is to pay for ads on broadcast TV because the viewership is going down. Um, Sort of got off my train of track there, but what was it?
You
um,
were talking about the broadcast TV and
yeah,
ads and all that.
so I just got to focus on targeting, and we can do this with our data that we have. So it may be okay. Talk about men in women's locker rooms and stuff. To say it's not just a problem in the grade schools, like the suburban women. That's in your locker room too. You want to go to the health club, and some male decides he wants to go in your club. So it's not just school kids or high school kids. He's going to be in yours too. Is that what you want in society? Um, and we had Tulsi Gabbard was here on Friday. It was a huge event, sold out. It was from Dane County Republican Party. And she mentioned a case of where somebody asked, and I forgot the name of the champion, heavyweight champion, but I'll use Mike Tyson. I think he's retired, but so somebody asked a Democratic congressman, like, well, would you be okay if Mike Tyson said he was a woman and went into a women's boxing match? And without hesitating, a Democratic congressman said yes. It's like it's insanity. And I like what Tulsi said. It's just save this country, leave the Democratic Party. And she's got a new book out, and she did a great speech, and I wouldn't mind seeing her as Trump's vice president candidate, but I'm not sure if that will happen. But she's got a great future ahead too. Common
Okay.
sense.
Well, I was going to ask you towards the end
Well, I
if you
started
had any
rambling there,
favorites.
so sorry.
No, I was going to ask you towards the end if you had any thoughts about who you would like to see as VP? So I guess you've answered that already, and we discussed that quite a bit on this live stream also. By the way, I was at that event, and I actually also published a video on my channel, just with some highlights about pertaining to the event with Tulsi Gabbard. It was Friday night. What an amazing event it was. So
I
that's
do like Brian Daniels too. So it's Florida
Byron
Congressman.
Daniels.
Yep.
Byron
So
Donalds, you mean?
Donalds, yes.
Okay, Byron Donalds. All
So
right. Yeah, he's
he'd be
great.
my number two. No, I flip a coin, either one of those two. So
And he was here during the Republican convention, the state convention in Appleton. Byron Donalds came and spoke.
yeah,
So
I was behind. I was up on the stage behind, and he got done with his presentation. I gave my business card, and I said, "I'd like to have you here do a fundraiser for us." And he took my card and went away, and I haven't heard anything since. But
okay, well, it would be
maybe
wonderful to have Byron Donalds in Dane
if
County.
he's watching your podcast, tell him he called me. He's got me. So
I never know who's watching my my podcast and my live stream. So I hope Byron Donalds comes to Dane County. I think it'll be great. So I have a question here from Susan Parker, and Susan is writing, are the Republicans going to prevent the illegal immigrants from voting in November? So I'm going to try to answer that here, Mr. Johnson. So Susan, what's really happening is that in some areas of the country, the Democrats, the liberals, the radical left, they're coming up with different ways to try to expand voting rights for the non-citizens. So I've talked about it quite a bit on this channel, that in New York City, the Democrats, they're trying to expand voting rights and to give voting rights to the non-citizens in municipal elections. Okay, now that has been challenged in court, and as of now, I think last I checked, the Democrats have not succeeded in expanding voting rights to the non-citizens in New York City, but I think that's what they are trying to do. But that's only going to be for municipal elections. But as I have expressed before on this channel, that voting rights are only for citizens, okay? So whether it's a green card holder or some other non-citizen, they should not have the right to vote in any American election, municipal election or state or federal election. Voting rights should only be for U.S. citizens, natural-born citizens, naturalized citizens. So Susan is concerned about illegal immigrants, whether they're going to vote or not in November. The Democrats, they're trying their best to expand voting rights to non-citizens, possibly to the migrants also. But that's something that the Republicans are fighting back, and so that's why we need Republican, solid conservative elected officials, vote for the Republicans at the federal level, state level, and local level. Look for the candidates. When you're looking at city council elections or village board or county board, look for the conservative candidates, okay? So, Susan, I hope I was able to answer that.
But I actually, Susan has a right to be concerned, if I may answer.
Sure.
It's not quite that easy because of the Democrats. I've been a poll worker and a poll watcher, and I know the laws. And what the Democrats are trying to do is get them driver's licenses.
Mm-hmm.
And Democrats are also working at the DMV offices. So you're not supposed to do it, but every person they give a driver's license to could be a voter. Because if they have a full driver's license and there's nothing on that license to say not a voter, they can vote. You can't stop them. You can't ask for citizenship papers. It's bad. We either win this election or it's all over. Those 10 million people will all be voting. They're going to, because so we have to take driver's tests. You have to do everything, and they're obsessed about getting illegal immigrants a driver's license. It's not out of the kindness of their heart. They want the votes, and it's almost impossible to stop them.
And Chuck Schumer, back in 2022, he did say, Senator Chuck Schumer from New York, he said that he wants a pathway to citizenship for the illegal immigrants. And that's when I had, like, immediately, as I remember that, as soon as I saw the news, I said, I'm gonna have to write an op-ed, and I wrote a long op-ed. It was published by I think it was the Western Journal. And I opposed that, obviously, but the Democrats at the highest level in government, you're talking. I mean, this is Senator Schumer.
Well, they
You
want
know,
to. They're importing a new electorate.
yeah,
Americans don't want to vote for Democrats anymore. We'll bring in 10 million new voters. It's that simple. They're not even hiding it that much.
yeah,
They basically want to make sure they keep winning elections and turn this into a one-party socialist state. That's been their goal
okay,
for a long time, and they're
yeah.
not hardly hiding it now.
Yeah. So if we want to protect our rights and our freedom, if we want to protect, our U.S. citizenship and our voting rights, it's time to vote for Trump and conservative candidates up and down the ballot. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So, Mr. Johnson, tell us about your projections. Obviously, we've discussed many different things during this live stream. In general, how are you feeling about November 2024? And do you think we can win? Do you think we can win the Senate race in Wisconsin? Do you think our members of Congress, the incumbents in Wisconsin, can they win? Can they get reelected? And can Donald Trump win?
I think so. I mean, he won here in 2016. We have to get the people who don't normally vote out to vote. We can't have the kind of 40,000 people in this district, and there's probably 40,000 in all the districts. So it ends up in the hundreds of thousands of people who, for whatever reason, don't vote. And that's what we have to work on. And Republicans don't like voting early, but we're trying to talk about voting early. Sometimes I think the party goes overboard on stuff. All they want to talk about is voting early, but they're not telling them why they should vote at all. And something I'm going to do is why you should vote. And
Mhm.
there's this talk, two people say, well, if I vote early, they're going to throw my ballot away. But actually, if you vote early, they're going to think you're a Democrat. That's probably the most securest way to vote. Because now, if that changes over and Republicans go 50-50, it's different. But if you vote early, they're going to assume you're a Democrat and it's going to go through. So I think, at least for this year, it's the safest way to vote. And they say, well, I mean, if you start getting into all the stuff, it'd be nice if we all voted on election day and we all use paper ballots. Because the nation of France uses paper ballots. They got a nation of 71 million people, and they know who won an election within 6 hours of the voting ending, which is pretty darn good for paper ballots. If they can do it, I
Yeah.
think we can do it. But
Yeah.
anyone who opposes, there's a reason for opposing paper ballots and for same day voting, because fraud is in there. And I'm not into the people who say, well, the computers are being manipulated and stuff. You don't need to do that if you're voting in a park. And once that vote is cast and they throw those votes into the other group, you cannot tell where the vote is cast. And we had a recount here in 2020, but it doesn't matter because the recount's going to be the same thing. Those votes should have never been cast in the first place in a park with no security, no IDs, no observers. And so I guess we'll have to see. This is it for people. Vote this time, or just kind of enjoy the few years you have left before they come and take your house, take your guns, take your freedom. So there's nowhere else to run in the world but here.
So there are many things that Americans are concerned about, obviously. But as I keep telling the viewers on this channel, we have to be optimistic. And I think, Mr. Johnson, you are optimistic that we can win.
Yes, and it maybe not because of what we do, but because of Joe Biden, the gift that keeps on giving. So, but if they replace him with someone else, it's a whole different ballgame again. But it's
Yeah.
going to be the same policies and
Yeah.
same inflation, same everything. The woke. I wonder if people are waking up. I saw in the European elections huge conservative gains. I mean, they call them far right parties, but it's actually what was simply a moderate centrist party 20 years ago. They now call far right because they moved so far to the left. So
Yeah.
people are getting fed up with that. They want you to eat bugs. I'm not kidding. They want abortions up to and even after the point of birth. Want you eating bugs and men and women's sports and men in the locker room and men can get pregnant. And I grew up on a farm. You could look at a herd of cows And I guarantee you 100% of the time, you will tell the male cows from the female cows. There's no iffiness there. And it's the same thing in every animal species in the world. And you're man or woman. And men do not have babies, which is the craziest thing I've seen. But yet the Democrats hype that. It's like, okay. They don't say how that's happening.
Yeah.
It's almost insane. It's just nuts. I heard the ancient Romans had a saying that those who the gods will destroy, they first drive crazy. That's paganism, but maybe the Democrats are finally being driven off the far end and people will wake up and see all the lies they've been told. That's all we can hope for.
Yeah. Mr. Johnson, it's so wonderful having this conversation with you. And this is special because, as I said, I've been doing live streams since January, and this is the first time that I've had a guest on my live stream. So thank you for joining. We're past 1 hour and 5 minutes, so I'm going to ask you, one final question, and then we're going to wrap up. And my final question is, in all these years of being in politics, do you have you have wonderful memories, but any particular really memorable thing or a day or someone you met, some political figure or some great event you attended, any memory that you want to share with us, something excellent, something uplifting?
There's been a bunch. I mean, I think probably the highlight for me was 2016. I was expecting the worst, and I didn't go to the big. I was invited to go to the party that Ron Johnson was having in Oshkosh, and I didn't go because I thought, well, we're going to lose, and we got Hillary for the next 4 years, and we're doomed. And then, so I was watching. I was doing. It's easier to read it online. I'm watching the chat channels and also on freerepublic.com, and that was getting positive. It's okay, I better start watching that thing. And so I was up to 2 in the morning, and that's peak. And I had to sit up all night probably, but I had to get up early to drive to Minocqua the next morning, so I went to bed about 2:30 in the morning. But I still have that. I was recording it, and once in a while I rewatch it. My wife comes down here to the man cave, and it's like, "You're watching that again?" So I'll probably watch those returns for a few times, but that was good.
Yeah.
The Walker recall victory was good too. They called it 59 minutes after the voting ended, so that was supposed to be. There's some good videos on that. Commentators are saying this is going to be close. We could be here. Rachel Maddow said we could be here on tomorrow. We could be here on the Today Show tomorrow before it's called. In 59 minutes it was called. So yeah, those things. I meet a lot of people. There's a number of jerks in politics, but I have met so many good people all over the state.
Absolutely.
And it's just fun. And we just got to get younger in the party, get young people involved. They're out there and being conservative. I see them at events, but they won't go to a Republican meeting. And we have to become a welcoming environment, and we have to change. And you heard me say this when I was campaigning for a second district chair. I always finished my talks with, if the Republican Party doesn't change how it works, we might as well replace our elephant logo with a dinosaur because we're going to become extinct. And that was sort of the hit applause line I had for the whole thing. And I mean it. We have to change things and get people out of their comfort zone, and don't treat people like Turning Point is the enemy. And I practically heard that from people because they're not us, It's like they message better than the Republican Party. They got more younger people in the Republican Party. When you see that, the Democrats would go for that like crazy if somebody was helping them. So I think that's changing a bit, but we got to get past this country club environment. And it's a Trump party now. It's a blue collar party. It's not the old country club, Wall Street. Wall Street realized it's easier to make money through the government and actually trying to earn it. So Wall Street's all Democrat. Everything has flipped from, say, the 1950s, where we were the business party. And Donald Trump did that. So I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I'm hopeful too, and I say that on this channel that no matter how tough the challenges are, we have to be optimistic, we have to be hopeful, and we have to stay energized and energize each other, because we have a country to protect. We have to protect our rights and our freedom, and you mentioned the 2016 election night. I'll never forget that night. I was in Oshkosh. I remember that night. What an amazing night it was. So
Senator Johnson was considered the most likely to be defeated, and then it was actually a rout. So yeah,
what a
that
great
was
victory it
that was a
was.
good night.
What a great victory it was. So thank you so much, Mr. Billy Johnson, for joining this live stream, for being the first ever guest on my channel. And so before we end, what's your website? So your second
Oh
congressional
yes,
district website. If people want to check out different things you're doing, different events, how do they get in touch with you?
sure.
Please tell your website. What's your
It's a
website? Yeah.
it's an easy to remember name. It's WI for Wisconsin, 2 for second, CD.com. So WI2CD.com. If you live in, say, Texas and Florida, or actually even a Democratic state, New York, California, and you want to see Donald Trump in the White House, chances are Texas and Florida, those votes are safe. He's going to get your electoral votes. If you're in Illinois or California or New York, probably not going to be a Trump victory. Why don't you donate money here? You go to our website. We're on WinRed, and you can donate up to $10,000 per person for this year. But $10 is fine too. I did some fundraising, just low key fundraising, but the 34 counts that Trump was indicted on and falsely convicted of, I just said, give us $34 or $340, and for every, we're going to do $1 for every one of these counts, and raise money. The Democrats raise money off of everything, so we can too. So WI2CD.com. This is my full-time job, and we're going to be fighting to polls close on November 8th and November 5th. 8th wasn't 16. And we got to win this election. This is it. If you're retired, spend all month, take the month of October, and just volunteer in campaigns, drive people to the polls. If you're working, schedule some vacation on time. If you're out of state, come up to Wisconsin in October. It's a good time. It's not cold yet. Leaves are pretty. Move up here for a few weeks and help Republicans win the state.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Johnson, for your time and for sharing your views, your thoughts, and more about the second congressional district and your efforts. So, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I see some great responses here. People are thanking you. Pamela Hernandez says, great interview. Terry Dunlap says, thank you, Billy. Good luck on the way to the election. And Susan Parker writes, great interview, Mr. Johnson. And, I'm sure there are many others who are watching.
Thank you,
Not
Ozzy.
everyone participates in the chat window. So thank you, everyone, for joining. It was great having you and having a discussion with you, Mr. Johnson. So with that, I'm going to end this live stream. Please stay connected to my channel, subscribe if you have not done so already, and share your thoughts, share your views, your opinions, write those in the comments. I would appreciate it. So thank you, Mr. Johnson, once again.
Thank you, Joseph. Yeah.
Yeah. Have a wonderful night, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.